The Great Spirit Man suddenly threw off the covers, only to find a stunning beauty lying on the bed. Her snow-white skin, as delicate as porcelain, and her clear, lively green eyes made roses blush, stars fall silent, and men lose their senses. They could hardly believe that such beauty existed in the world. It was as if she were an angel untouched by earthly smoke. Little did they know, she was indeed an angel descended to earth. It turned out that last night, while Jim was sound asleep in his room after drinking, there was a loud noise from the pool outside. The splashing waves rushed into the room, waking her up, and she quickly opened the door to check what was happening. To her surprise, she found what seemed to be a girl with wings floating in the middle of the pool. Despite the disbelief, Jim bravely and cautiously stepped into the water. When she turned the body over, she saw the angel's flawless face, exuding an enchanting charm and mysterious aura. Without much thought, she carried the person back to the room, intending to dry her clothes with a towel. However, in the blink of an eye, the angel had already dried all her clothes by herself. Looking at the face as white as snow and the golden hair shimmering with starlight, Jim couldn't help but move closer to the angel. To her surprise, she found that the angel wasn't breathing. At first, she wanted to call an ambulance, but realized her phone had been dumped in the fish tank during last night's wild party. Helpless, she abandoned her gentlemanly demeanor and began performing CPR on the angel. Unexpectedly, the moment their lips touched, the angel miraculously opened her eyes. At the same time, a pure white glow emanated from her body. Due to her previous actions, Jim quickly explained, "I was just trying to save you, I really wasn't trying to take advantage of you. Please don't think I'm a pervert." However, the angel didn't mind at all and even pursued Jim with questions. In fact, the angel didn't understand earthly love and affection. She simply wanted to express her gratitude for Jim's life-saving act in this pure and direct way. Perhaps there was a barrier between the divine and the mortal, as Jim suddenly fell asleep the moment after being kissed. It wasn't until the morning light broke that he awoke from his slumber. Seeing the room as messy as before, he thought everything from last night was just a dream. Until he saw the angel surrounded by holy light, flapping her wings. For a moment, he couldn't help but sigh in awe. Just when Jim was shocked and didn't know what to do, the door outside was suddenly knocked. At that moment, she remembered she had agreed with her friends to play ball today. Since he already had a fiancée, he didn't want his buddies to see a beautiful woman at home and cause unnecessary misunderstandings. So she was advised not to come out at all. However, when she opened the door in a panic, her friends immediately noticed her disheveled clothes and suspected he was hiding a mistress. So, ignoring his protests, they rushed into the room. After a search as thorough as a military sweep, their eyes collectively focused on something under the blanket on the bed. Then, with ill intentions, they suddenly lifted the blanket, revealing a face of stunning beauty. Unable to speak earth languages, the angel could only express feelings with her expression and wings. Watching the angel slowly unfold her wings, the friends, unaware of the truth, were instantly dumbfounded. But when Jim revealed the angel's true identity, they had an evil idea to sell the angel to a zoo for display. Kidnapping her could certainly make a fortune. However, kind-hearted Jim chose not to go along with them and instead wanted to help the angel return to heaven as soon as possible. He felt that the angel's purity should not be tainted by the secular world. But even when he was furious, his mischievous friends still refused to give up. As the saying goes, a word to the wise is enough. Jim decided not to argue further and returned home. Since the angel had accidentally injured her wing when she fell to earth, Jim carefully bandaged it and gently comforted her, fearing to frighten her innocent heart. This filled the angel's heart with warmth, and she couldn't help but ask Jim for a kiss again. Although he enjoyed this intimacy, Jim held his ground and didn't give in to his desires. Just then, there was another knock on the door. After instructing the angel not to come out, Jim cautiously went to open it, only to find his fiancée standing outside. In fact, his fiancée had come by the day after the angel's arrival, but Jim had politely refused her entry, citing the mess at home. His fiancée didn't think much of it and just arranged to meet him at a cafe in half an hour to sort out their issues. It turned out that the day before was their engagement party. But at the party, Jim was gloomy. While everyone else was happily celebrating inside, he sat alone in the yard, letting the sudden downpour soak his brand new suit. Feeling embarrassed about the wedding date, Jian Zhuang forcibly dragged him into the room. But the next second, 3 armed robbers suddenly burst into the villa, turning the joyous engagement party into a chaotic crime scene. However, the 3 masked criminals didn't seem interested in money or lust. Instead, they clearly aimed to kidnap the stepmother. Originally, the father-in-law planned to call the police, but unexpectedly, the robbers threw a grenade before leaving, scaring everyone to flee outside. Yet, they waited anxiously for a long time without hearing the bomb explode like in a heist movie. Instead, the phone started ringing. To not miss any message, the brave father-in-law crawled into the room using a doll as cover, risking his life. Unexpectedly, it was the kidnappers on the other end, informing him that the grenade was actually made of rubber. The tricked father-in-law was instantly speechless. Meanwhile, the successful pranksters drove away, cheering. It turned out that this so-called kidnapping was a bachelor party specially planned by Jim's 3 mischievous friends for his upcoming wedding. And that's why Jim felt guilty. Originally, when his fiancée first asked him to a cafe, he had agreed. But a series of accidents made him forget the appointment, which was why she came looking for him again. However, no one expected the 3 of them to run into each other. Thinking she was betrayed, the fiancé angrily drove away, while the misunderstood Jim vented his anger at the angel by the door. Unexpectedly, the startled angel fell to the ground. Jim and Jian Zhuang quickly went back inside to check if the angel was hurt. Not only was the angel unharmed, but she also looked at him with a mischievous expression, instantly dissipating his anger with her charming and cute demeanor. Later, to find a way for the angel to return to heaven, the 2 of them went to a church. Seeing the angel paintings everywhere in the church, Jim felt they had come to the right place. But just then, a boy who had just confessed to the priest about his excessive lust saw the angel and was instantly filled with burning desire again. Even though Yisho accidentally got ignited by the holy fire and was about to get burned, her fluttering heart didn't retreat. It wasn't until they stepped outside the church that a scream like a pig being slaughtered was heard. After this little incident, Jim left the angel in the hall while she went into the confessional. Then, she told the priest about her experiences. But the priest, being a believer, unfortunately didn't believe angels existed. Meanwhile, the angel, attracted by the holy statue, climbed up and spread her wings, gazing at the statue. At this moment, a devout female worshipper came over and knelt in front of the statue. When she finished praying and opened her eyes, she met the angel's gaze, which scared her into a scream. Then, she turned her head and left. This is probably what they call a night palace cage. The angel, startled by the sudden shout, curled up in the corner. At this time, Jim, who heard the scream, rushed out. He wrapped the shivering angel in a blanket and gently comforted her wounded soul. Seeing a man and a woman hugging, the priest thought they were misbehaving, so without listening to Jim's explanation, he kicked them out of the church. As it was late and they hadn't had dinner, Jim, who was new to the area, bought the angel a delicious serving of fries and a burger. But the angel, who had never seen such things, was frightened by the appearance of the burger, drawing curious glances from everyone around. Feeling embarrassed, Jim used the excuse of calling his fiancée to get out of the car, leaving the angel alone, staring blankly at the fries. Perhaps it was because she was too hungry, or maybe the fries were too tempting. The angel couldn't help but take a lick, and then she started to eat heartily. However, just as she was enjoying her meal, Jim's 3 friends followed their trail and found them. Seeing the angel alone and thinking of making a fortune, they discovered she loved fries and began to lure her out of the car with more fries. This way, they could kidnap the angel and fulfill their dream of getting rich overnight. Fortunately, Jim returned from his phone call just in time to foil their plan. As the saying goes, blessings never come in pairs, but misfortunes never come alone. After Jim got rid of his troublesome friends and brought the angel home, they were targeted by a notorious mad dog. To prevent the angel from being frightened again, he quickly took out his keys to open the door. Unexpectedly, with just a gentle look from the angel, the once aggressive hunting dog was instantly tamed into a well-behaved and obedient Hajime, doing whatever was asked. Just as Jim was feeling incredulous, the father-in-law angrily stormed in, seeing the 2 laughing and playing with the dog. He coldly questioned if Jim had really cheated on his daughter. Before Jim could explain, he roughly grabbed Jim by the collar, as if ready to start a fight. Seeing this, the angel immediately shifted her gentle gaze from the dog to the father-in-law's face. Unexpectedly, the father-in-law, like the dog, instantly became docile. Not only that, he even changed his attitude and urged Jim to take good care of the angel. As for his daughter, he would handle it. However, once Jim and the angel returned to the room, he immediately became irritable again, even wanting to knock on the door and teach Jim a lesson. But at this moment, Hakimi turned back into a hunting dog, and so, man and dog faced off. In the end, the father-in-law was unfortunately defeated and chased away by the dog, biting his behind all the way out. After the man and dog left, Jim, being a composer, could finally write music in peace. But a sudden headache forced her to stop working and take the medication she had long needed. The angel, who had been by her side, seemed to see through her ailment and spread her wings to offer some comfort. Unexpectedly, she coldly refused. The disappointed angel silently retracted her wings, then sadly retreated to the bedroom and closed the door. The next day, to explain things to his fiancée, Jim planned to take the angel to his father-in-law's house. But since the angel's attire was too conspicuous, they first went to the mall to pick out more ordinary clothes. In the end, after careful comparison, Yifan chose a terribly smelly coat and ill-fitting high heels. If Jim hadn't been there to support the angel, she wouldn't have been able to walk at all. Since it wasn't yet the agreed time after buying clothes, Jim took the angel to the library, trying to find a way for the angel to return to heaven from the literature. Unexpectedly, after seeing the illustrations in the book, the angel suddenly became excited, continuously making clear sounds, as if expressing her longing for her homeland in her own language. However, to Earthlings who couldn't understand alien languages, her voice was just noise. And since the library prohibited noise, Jim had to carry the noise-making angel away under glaring eyes, leaving behind a fallen feather. After being discovered, they vanished into thin air again. Later, the two finally arrived at the father-in-law's house, but as soon as they got out of the car, they were spotted by the fiancé upstairs. They walked over, supporting each other, and the fiancé, who was already supposed to be extremely angry, lost her mind even more. Before Jim could explain, she threw all their previous tokens of love down from upstairs. Coincidentally, at that moment, the sprinkler in the yard started spraying water on schedule. Jim and the angel, unable to avoid it, got soaked. The fiancé didn't feel triumphant from her revenge. Instead, she hugged a bottle of wine and cried herself into a drunken stupor. Since the afternoon's attempt to clarify things failed, Jim called his fiancée in the evening, asking for a chance to explain in person. But she was still furious, not only refusing but also blasting a blindingly sharp sound through the phone with a megaphone. With no other choice, Jim had to take the angel home first. However, after she returned home and finished washing up, she found that the angel, who was supposed to be in the room, was nowhere to be found. Worried sick, she hurried out to search, fearing the angel had left without a sound. Suddenly, a glow from a distant grove caught her attention. As she followed the light and got closer, she was surprised to see the angel emitting a pure glow. This light, reflecting off the surrounding green branches, created a beautiful and ethereal scene, like something out of a dream. Moreover, the angel's heavenly singing mesmerized Jim. When the angel saw Jim arrive, he stopped his magic for him. Then, with tenderness in his eyes, he walked over to Jim, gently caressing his face, which had turned pale with worry. After this brief separation, their feelings for each other deepened. However, as they moved closer, a crisis was also approaching. Since they failed to abduct the angel last time, the troublemakers planned to change tactics. First, they had someone pose as a love messenger to deliver a gift and a love letter to the fiancée in Jim's name, inviting her to meet at the park at 8 in the evening. The fiancé, thinking Jim had finally come to his senses, gladly agreed. Then, the friends called Jim, inviting him and the angel to the same place under the pretense of an apology. Jim happily accepted the invitation. So, at 8 in the evening, Jim brought the angel to the park, but the fiancé had not yet arrived. Seeing the two appear at the same time, he felt utterly humiliated. Jim, being strong, quickly stepped up, completely forgetting the angel was still standing there, which was exactly what his mischievous friends intended. They wanted Jim's fiancé to hold him back, so they could capture the angel in one go. By the time Jim realized what was happening, their plan had succeeded, and they had made their escape. Jim, feeling mocked, was furious. Even though he drove around all night searching, he couldn't find any trace of the angel. While he was running around like a headless chicken, his mischievous friends had already contacted reporters, planning to put the angel on screen to catch the attention of the wealthy and make a hefty profit. The angel, like a lamb to the slaughter, was tied up, blindfolded, and thrown backstage at the press conference, waiting to be claimed by some big shot. Meanwhile, with no leads, Jim could only wait at his friend's house. Suddenly, a phone call came in. Upon hearing the caller mention attending a press conference, he immediately snapped to attention and pieced everything together. He then rushed to the press conference venue, following the address provided by the caller. By this time, the angel had already been brought out in front of everyone. Fortunately, his wings hadn't been exposed yet. Jim, being strong, immediately stepped onto the stage and started swinging his fists, knocking his mischievous friends to the ground one by one. When one of the friends got up to fight back, the angel, knowing the power of blood, punched him off the stage. To avoid causing a bigger scene, Jim, now in control, quickly left the press conference with the angel in his arms. However, as they got into the car, their intimate embrace and actions were captured by the reporters following them. This was broadcasted on TV, right into the eyes of Jim's fiancée. Before this, she only hated Jim for being unfaithful. But now, her hatred extended to the angel as well. Hatred is like a tumor, quickly consuming one's mind, turning them into an irrational demon. Originally, the family thought that by throwing away his belongings, they could drive out the inner demon. Who would have thought he would take out a shotgun, ready to go down with the cheating couple? Meanwhile, the three friends who were embarrassed in public also wanted to take them down. At this point, none of them knew where Jim and the angel had gone. It turned out that after leaving the press conference, to escape the chaos of the world, Jim took the angel to a cabin in the forest on the outskirts. Although it's not completely isolated from the world, it can be considered an idyllic paradise, with fresh air and beautiful scenery. There was still a lot of adorable animal presence, and the two of them lived a fairy tale life in this place. Jim's mother was responsible for earning a living, while the angel was in charge of being beautiful. Jim's mother took care of the angel's wings, and the angel looked after the creatures of the jungle. If he felt bored, the angel would pluck a feather to tease the sleeping Jim's mother. And when Jim's mother had free time, she would read books while admiring the angel's beauty, until one day, the angel unexpectedly discovered that his wings had healed. But he didn't want Jim to know yet, otherwise, he would have no reason to stay. So, he secretly went to the jungle to test his flight while Jim was asleep. He spread his arms and ran slowly through the forest. Even the animal friends came out to greet him. As his steps became lighter and more joyful, he successfully soared into the sky, flew over mountains and rivers, and then dashed into a magnificent sunset. Not long after, with a flash of blue light, he returned to the cabin and Rue wrapped his bandages, pretending that his wings hadn't recovered. In the evening, the two of them, filled with affection, sat by the campfire to talk. Jim also revealed why he was unhappy at the engagement party. 6 months ago, I suddenly started having headaches, which became frequent and prevented me from continuing my work. To ease my anxiety, I began hanging out with 3 bad friends. Soon after, I met my fiancée. Since my compositions weren't very popular, she advised me to give up being a composer and marry her instead. I originally thought that getting married would calm my restless heart, but on the night of the engagement, I felt even more agitated. Later, I met you. During the time spent with you, I've felt happier than ever before. I can't deny that I've fallen for you. After all, no one can resist loving you, but I also know you don't belong here, and we can never be together. On the surface, it seemed like Jim was confessing his feelings to the angel, but in reality, he was warning himself not to fall too deeply, or he would end up heartbroken. At first, the angel just listened intently, occasionally showing a loving expression. But as Jim's emotions grew more intense, he began to slowly approach him, then gently nestled into Jim's chest like embracing a precious treasure. However, even the tender moments had to come to an end, because Jim had discovered the angel's wings, fully recovered. Although the angel was reluctant to leave and even shed her first tear, there was always a celestial barrier between humans and gods. Therefore, they were destined to be apart. But just as the two were reluctantly saying goodbye, the fiancé came over with Laifu. It turns out that during Jim's disappearance, his fiancée was searching for him to complete her revenge. Coincidentally, yesterday, a patrol officer saw Jim's car. So, they immediately informed the fiancé, who reported the case. That's how the fiancé found this place. To avoid being seen, the angel hid as soon as she heard the commotion. As soon as the fiancé approached Jim, she raised her hand and slapped him, questioning where that vixen angel was. When Jim said she had already left, the disbelieving fiancé raised her arm again. Unexpectedly, the next second, she was thrown to the ground and then kicked hard in the butt, causing her to eat a mouthful of dirt. Seeing this, Jim immediately guessed it was the angel causing trouble. So, he groped around, trying to catch the invisible angel while advising her not to act impulsively. However, before Jim could touch anyone, the fiancé's parents suddenly appeared. They came here partly because they learned their daughter was in a bad mental state after being cheated on, so they followed her for her safety. On the other hand, their cosmetics company was facing a severe sales crisis. To boost sales, the father-in-law, after seeing the angel, wanted him to endorse their products. Unfortunately, after several attempts, Jim's house was either empty or they were scared off by a mad dog. Later, when they learned their daughter was determined to find Jim and the angel, he kept an eye on her whereabouts. Now, they finally found them. However, to his disappointment, the angel was not present. So, he eagerly interrogated Jim about where the angel had gone. But before Jim could answer, 3 of his mischievous friends brought Jim's dad along, following the police clues to join the fun. Due to the competitive nature of the 3 parties, they quickly fell into a brawl. They completely failed to notice that one of the central figures, Jim, had already fainted on the ground. However, at this moment, the long-hidden angel suddenly appeared. Unable to bear seeing her beloved being bullied, she shed her usual gentleness and erupted with a sharp scream, then summoned thunder and lightning. The storm targeted his fiancé's family, and no matter how they tried to escape, it was useless. After severely punishing the wicked, the angel made a gesture of entrustment to Jim's father. Then, transforming into a ball of light, it flew into the sky. As the angel's departure signal sounded, after a detailed examination by the doctor, Jim was diagnosed with late-stage brain tumor, with not much time left. In his daze, he saw the angel descend again. Under the angel's gentle touch, he finally realized that he should have died on the night of the bachelor party. But because the angel unfortunately collided with an unidentified flying object and broke its wings, it couldn't take him back to heaven in time. Suddenly, Jim was curious if everyone sees an angel after they die. The angel gently shook its head, indicating that only good people receive this privilege. Although happy to be one of the lucky ones, Jim still felt some fear in the face of death. However, what scared him the most was never having the chance to spend time with the angel again. Perhaps, to leave no regrets, Jim, who had been suppressing his feelings, finally said, "I love you." As the angel kissed his wounded lips, her life completely disappeared. However, when his friends came to see her one last time, they found she hadn't died. Not only that, the angel, who originally had wings, had transformed into a nurse. Instantly, the 3 friends understood everything and awkwardly left the room like a PNC. It turned out that at the moment Jim left, the angel, unable to bear her lover's death, wrapped his body in her feathered robe and then offered a sincere prayer to God. God, moved by Jim's pure goodness and their love, not only restored Jim's life but also allowed the angel to stay temporarily on Earth to accompany him for the rest of his life. Angel on Earth is a romance film directed by Tom McLaughlin, starring Emmanuel Bayard and David Dukes, released in 1987. Jim, who was supposed to die on his engagement night, was spared by the angel's compassion, not only falling in love with the angel but also moving God, thus gaining a new life. Though it sounds like a fairy tale, Jim truly deserved to be favored. He was kind-hearted, pure in nature, never flattering the powerful or belittling the weak. Even though he was unsuccessful, he never complained about his fate. He could have relied on his wealthy fiancée. He lifted his wife, leaving society behind, because he didn't want to tarnish true feelings. He could stay out of it. When everyone wanted to use the angel's beauty to gain wealth, only he couldn't bear to see the angel's purity defiled, and tried everything to protect her. The angel of Jai, they all say, the angel is truly good, but he only exists in myths. However, mortals like Jim certainly exist in the world. Even though with the rise of selfishness, most people focus more on their own interests, and some even lose their humanity for power and money. But on this seemingly dark land, there are always some selfless and kind people, like stars, quietly shining in some unnoticed corner, using their weak yet firm strength to illuminate the darkness around them, warming those souls shivering in the cold. These people are more like angels fallen to the mortal world, deserving of everyone's admiration and respect, and should also receive fairy tale-like luck and love. Alright, that's it for today's movie sharing. Please like, comment, and share. Looking forward to our next meeting.